Ellis, Ezra Allen. I was born in Dalton, Missouri.
Dalton? How you spell it?
D-A-L-T-O-N,
Missouri.
Missouri.
And what's your date of birth?
January 23rd, 20.
So how old are you now?
I am 94 years old now. I'll be 95 in January.
Wow. How's it feel to be 94?
Well, I'm a little slow.
What kind of education do you have?
I had 3 semesters college. I was drafted out of school.
What year were you drafted?
1942, July the 25th. Never will forget that.
Boy, you never forget those dates, huh? You were drafted into the Army?
Army.
What educations did you have before you went into the military?
Well, I didn't have what you call a steady job.
Okay. So what kind of work did you do?
Well, farm labor.
What were the Korean service dates?
August 50, 33, 40 months, actually.
August 1950 to October 1953.
3. See, I was a prisoner of war 33 months. I got captured the first day of December, 1950.
What do you remember about your first impressions arriving in Korea?
Well, I landed at Busan perimeter. They had backed us into that little corner of Korea.
And you landed there
About 3 o'clock. And
on what day or year?
I can't remember the exact day.
But 1950?
1950 was in August. We got off the boat at 3 o'clock. Our guns had got there ahead of us, and we fired at 6:30.
So you practiced shooting?
No, we were ready.
You were ready. Guns ready.
Yeah, we went to range every spring, and we had been going to range once a week for a month. Somebody knew what was going to happen.
Yeah.
They didn't catch us surprised, you know.
So you were in Busan for how long?
We almost stayed in Busan overnight. We got out of the road when we fired. They fired at 6 o'clock. Charlie Battery fired about 6 o'clock, and I was in charge of the wheel vehicles, and the gun was already loaded and firing, and we moved up to the line, and
You were in charge of the trucks?
Yes, all wheel vehicles, trucks, jeeps, the whole thing, the battalion. Okay. After we got about a mile out of town, the MP stopped us and to arm everybody.
To what?
To arm everyone.
To make sure?
I was the only one that had any ammunition. I only had 7 rounds in my 45. And they wouldn't let us pass points until everybody had been given ammunition. So I was in charge, so I had to break open the boxes of ammunition on the supply trucks and make sure that everybody had at least a clip of ammunition before they let us proceed.
Okay.
And that was on the Nangtong River. We were in the 2nd Infantry Division. 3rd Battalion of the 9th Infantry was right ahead of us. They got there a week before we did. The Marines, the 19th Infantry was ahead there. They was on the front line, and the Marines came in and relieved them. Fought back and forth there. I can't remember how many days.
What battalion were you in?
So I was with the 503rd Field Artillery Battalion until they broke out when MacArthur landed in Incheon behind them. That's when we broke out. So what happened? Thanksgiving Day, but they late. That's when they really come on.
So Thanksgiving Day, the Chinese started.
Thanksgiving Day when they hit us really. But we were ready for them, but there was too many of them.
And this was 1950?
50. November 1950. Well,
The Chinese started to assault?
yes. We woke up one morning, and the guys, there was a cornfield right there on some little creek, and there was stalks of corn, you know how to stack it,
Yeah.
and rice. And there was Chinese laying all around there, didn't have weapons.
They didn't have any weapons?
No.
The Chinese?
Yes, they had infiltrated.
They what?
Well, they'd come infiltrated in there, you know.
Yeah.
They didn't have no weapons. When we got captured, when they hit us at Coonery Pass, we had Chinese prisoners right on the Yellow River. It's sort of right where the crossing. And the river was backed up there.
And that's Camp 5?
Camp 5. We got there early January. I can't remember the first date.
Boy, it's really cold in January.
Oh, Lord. I spent 3 winters on the Yellow River.
Wow.
You can't imagine how cold it was. You know, and I guess you've heard of the mining camp, haven't you?
No.
Oh, you haven't?
No.
Well, the mining camp was about halfway there, and we was going up this mountain, and you could see that gap there, square gap. And hey, we walked all evening getting up there, and as soon as we got in that gap, the wind hit us. Golly, it was cold. And that was Christmas Eve night. I'll never forget that was Christmas Eve night. And it took us all morning to get down to the foot of that mountain. And
The wind was blowing pretty good.
Oh boy, when we stepped, as soon as we hit that pass up there, oh, God. And it was a mountainside, you know, a mountain road. Mm-hmm. And I heard guys screaming. You know what that meant?
What?
Somebody that jumped over the moon.
They jumped.
They committed suicide.
They jumped over the mountain.
Off the road, yeah.
Oh boy.
I heard several guys screaming, and we found out those guys just give up, I guess.
Are there any houses at the mining camp?
Oh, they had little houses all up and down there, where the people, the miners, I guess, lived.
So it was a temporary prison.
Yes.
And how long did you stay there? From December?
About a week. And when they moved us out of there, well, I had my clerk. They had him. He didn't get captured right with me. I was in one group, and he was in another group, and like the roads come together, and everybody said I got killed. Oh. And he saw me, and he broke left out of formation, and he was running across, and the Chinese were hollering at him. And he was, "Sergeant Allen."
You were marched from the mining camp to Camp 5?
Camp 5. So we left Moody there in camp with a bunch, supposed to have been sick and wounded. The mining camp, they called it. Boy, we lost a lot of people there. I've seen them haul them out on a sled.
They froze to death?
Oxen, and their arms would be flopping.
They just died of starvation or frozen or?
Exposure. Man, it was cold. Guys got caught with no winter clothes on. Got captured with feet. Guys, like New Orleans, he couldn't wear heavy underwear.
So how many men were in Camp 5, you think?
Well, but in 6 weeks we lost over 1,000 people there. First, we got captured and they had church all day long. We had a couple of guys, I call them jackleg preachers, and they was preaching and singing, and they got on me because I didn't be singing and preaching with them. "You're not taking part in the service." I said, "I'm here just because you don't pray." I said, "I pray more than you do. I just don't pray as loud as you do." You know what I mean?
So you were treated not too bad by the North Korean guards.
They didn't. No, what they call it? Anyways, and they laugh at him. I said, "Oh, let that fool alone and be to shot somebody."
Yeah, it might activate them, yeah.
And I told the Chinese, I said, "Look, that guy is dangerous." Eventually they moved all the Koreans out of that, and the Chinese took over the place.
What happened then?
Well, everything was nice, but only they finally gave us one rice meal every 3 days, and the lenient treatment policy. Lenient treatment policy. Well, what they was doing, they was using us just like They did Chiang Kai-shek soldiers. They converted them.
To communism. So we're using a lenient treatment policy to entice you to convert.
Yeah, well, it worked. If they had released us and said 3 months after we got captured, guys would have been thoroughly, young boys, thoroughly confused.
Yeah.
You see, the Chinese was in charge of us from L.A., Massachusetts Institute. These were educated from Cambridge. Guys spoke perfect English.
The Chinese.
See, I made a mistake. They had lectures. Well, they made me a squad leader of my bunch. I had a bunch of youngsters. Well, I kept record of our meeting. Well, when I come back from a barrel detail, I found they made me the monitor of my squad. That means I kept record of all the discussions. You know?
Wow.
So what happened, I had a bunch of youngsters, and I had one Japanese, and a Japanese Korean who was our interpreter for our battalion, Yakamama. And so they start these propaganda lectures. Well, hell, I had social science. I knew about Marx and Engels theory, you know? Hell, I'd heard it, read about it. And here they come in there with this one book by Marx about the Communist Common Farm.
Marxism.
The law laid down for communism by Marx and Engels. You heard of it, haven't you?
Yep.
The Common Farm. Well, I had read it too. And then there it says by Nikolai Lenin. I said, hell, this ain't no Marx and Engels theory. That's Nikolai Lenin's theory. He transmitted it to him what he thought. You said, what was that Russian with Lenin? I mean Stalin. He got killed in Mexico.
Right. Did you get moved again, or you stayed in Camp 5?
Camp 5 from January till August or July. That's later on they moved us to Camp. All the sergeants, they moved us out of Camp 5 and moved us to Camp 4.
And all the sergeants went to
Camp 4. Well, rumors run, why. Somebody said they're sending us to a labor camp.
How was Camp 4?
That's what Camp 4 was. But what they did, they were getting the sergeants waiting for the rest of the troops.
Yeah. What'd you do in Camp 4?
Nothing.
We just kind of sat around?
For a while. But you see, we was right on the Nangtong River. I mean the Yellow River.
What year, January to August 1951?
We were living in a schoolhouse building that had brick up so far, and then the straw on the top. Had wood floors. They made stoves in it for us.
Wood floors.
Yeah. And what happened?
And stoves are there too?
They made stoves out of brick and stone with steel tops on them. And they bought us coal in there. Hey, we were living them up, man. And when they started the propaganda program.
And they were giving you coal too?
Yeah, they bought coal in there.
And a metal top so you can cook on it?
Stoves had a grate in it and everything. But the basic stove was made out of brick and mortar. We stayed at Camp 4. We stayed at Camp 4 until they released us. When they released us, they put us on a train. And we crossed the river, and the train stopped right in the middle of the river.
So you put on a train and the train stopped on the bridge over the river?
Taking us back down to Kaesong and Freedom Village.
Kaesong, you went to a helicopter
And
to
then-
Incheon?
Then to Incheon, and put us on a boat. And boy, was I happy. Now I was interviewed by several people. They brought me morning reports, and for me to mark off people I knew who had got killed. I just got tired, and I still not.
Yeah. So you were brought to Incheon, you fed the steaks, and then they put you on a ship to go home?
From Incheon to San Francisco.
What ship did you go on?
I can't remember.
What is the most memorable part of your Korean War experience? What was the most memorable that you think about a lot or remember the most?
I don't know.
Anything stick out in your mind that you think about a lot?
That's one thing, you see. I've never let it bother me. You see, some people post some stress. I never suffered none of that. And I don't believe in it. What do they call it? Post-stress something?
Yeah, post-traumatic stress.
See, I don't want to hear that crap. A man is a man. He's supposed to stand up whatever he get into. I volunteered my second hitch. I got drafted at first, but I re-enlisted in the Army. So I blame myself for it. And hey, I ain't going to sit around and cry.
Right. How did the Korean War in general impact you? From the time you got there to the time you got home, how did the war experience impact you at all?
It just, one thing I learned here, how to make a decision. You know, I was sitting right on a bridge. I didn't want to stay in the Army. But when I got out after World War II, the civil rights thing was going. And you know how that went.
Right.
And I had a guy in my hometown, in my town I was living in. You know what he told me? He addressed me as son. He was a wealthy guy. He said, "Son, don't you be walking around here at night by yourself." Well, you see, what had happened, I had several confrontations with some bastard who disrespected me, and if he couldn't respect me, he'd better be ready to fight. And I'd pop him. You know what I mean? I always had a lot of fire, you know.
Yeah.
My grandmother reared me, and this guy told me, "Don't you be walking around here by yourself." And here my mother-in-law, who worked at a restaurant, "Oh, you can't be like that. You got a family." What the hell do you mean I can't be like that? I'm a man, and if you disrespect me, you'd better be able to whip me. And if you go too far, I'll get an equalizer. That was my policy.
Right.
So you know what I did? I re-enlisted. I got out of that mess.
When did you re-enlist?
November of '47. I'd been in the reserve 2 years. Came back in the Army.
And that's when you went to Korea?
Yeah. Well, I went through a lot of things. I went to school. I joined the 2nd Infantry Division. I thought I was going to get my wife to come and stay with me, see. Once I got made staff sergeant, I was eligible for housing.
What would you like the people to remember about the Korean War from your experiences?
Well, there was, you see, we were fighting the communists, they call it. You know? See, Americans don't know much about communism. Here we are not communicating with Cuba, American play, talking about they're communists. They're not communists. They're a socialist organization run by the Communist Party.
Cuba. Yeah.
Do you understand me?
Yep.
China is a socialist country. It is not a communist country. It's run by the Communist Party. How many people do you meet to know this?
Not many.
People are ignorant. That's the biggest trouble in this country right today. Ignorance. You see, our schools don't train our children. They don't teach them history anymore. And it burns me up, you know. I sit there in church and listen to the preachers. They don't preach it. They need, I said, you don't need preaching, they need teaching.
We'd like to thank you for telling us your story. And we appreciate it because many of the Vietnam, Korean, World War II veterans are disappearing. And this video will go on our website. And I need you to sign a thing allowing us to do that.
Yes.
And we also want to give you a book. This is a book from the Republic of Korea. The Koreans made this for the soldiers. So you're welcome to have this book and read it. It's got a whole bunch of history. It's got photographs and everything about the Korean War and Korea itself. Well, thank you very much, Ezra.
Yes.